So let's start Study Club, and our topic today is about team implementation and motivation. This is a big issue, and this is what we're all about at All Signal Academy. But I want to go deeper. I want to hear from our esteemed coaches and our head instructor. So like as I mentioned before, we have our head instructor, Larry Gazzardo, Eric Vickery, and Dana Russell are great coaches. And as I mentioned before, Dana is our VP of coaching, and Eric is our just brilliant, long-standing coach. In this discussion, in this topic, what I'm going to do quickly is just give a detailing of the issue, and then we're going to go around the circle. We'll start with Eric, go to Dana, then hear from Larry, and we're going to do two circles. We're going to do one circle, which is going to be about the issue from their perspective, and then we're going to talk about the second circle. We're going to talk about tactics, some how-to in terms of how to motivate, how to improve team implementation, and then we'll go to Q&A. If you have some questions throughout or some comments, please feel to chime in. We're here not just to lecture, we're here to get your feedback, and the reason we're doing the study club is because I've had emails come in and questions about how do I motivate my team, how, we're doing All-Star or we're doing some training and 6 months in or a year or 2 years in, motivation is dwindling, or we can't get it off the ground. What's the issue there? So just a quick thing here. For those that have heard me talk about this, it's good a little bit of review because repetition is the mother of all skill. So just so you know, I did a study several years ago with about 40,000 dentists, and I found that 97% of dentists train less than once a year. So the fact that you're on this call, and many of you are All-Star students, you're training. So you're in the top 3%. And so it's very important if you want to compete with other practices, you want to compete with larger, more corporate entities, you got to be training. And I think a lot of dentists, perhaps the reason that they're not training is because it's overwhelming to get started, and there's a lot of resistance with the team. And the thing that dentists want to do, and I know this by talking to hundreds of them a year and growing up with one, is they want to avoid their staff as much as they can when it comes to training. They don't want problems. It's too stressful. They want to just do the dentistry and get paid. And anything that's going to give an excuse to interact with the team more and make uncomfortable situations, they're going to avoid as training. But that's how you get better. And so we're trying to make it as painless as possible, in what we do. So if you want to learn more about this issue of training in general, definitely go to our website, download our book, Dental Practice Excellence, and I cover in great detail the issue of training, phone skills, broken appointments, how to reduce turnover, and how do we overcome the issues of my staff saying, I'm not interested in training, or I'm too busy to train, or whatever those things. And I have rebuttals for that. But I don't want to repeat that content because I talk about it a lot in the book and many other places. So now let's get to the coaches here. And what I want to hear from you, tell me a little bit about this issue of team training, of motivation. And we're going to start with Eric. And Eric, as we spoke earlier, from my understanding, is you're going to cover a little bit about the costs involved of not, because I will say this, so many people say it's so obvious, like I have Brent on the call here, one of my most studious students, and, he gets it. And a lot of you are All-Star students, you get it. But some dentists, they're like, everybody should be doing this. But what I say, and I realized, I used to think that way, well, they should understand it. It just makes sense. We should train. But they don't train unless they see there's a problem and it hurts. So Eric, bring the pain.
Thanks, Alex. Having been in dentistry since 1998 and looking at training and figuring out how do you get team members to a certain level, you also have to realize that there's a cost when you don't get them to that level. So first of all, the first cost is when you don't have a team that is trained, a team member is trained, you've got cases of dentistry walking out the door without scheduling. You could just look at your unscheduled appointment list and look at the dollars there and probably be shocked. You know, we use our case presentation tracker to measure those results. You know, how are we presenting? What are they scheduling? What are they not scheduling? And if you've got a team member who is, you know, not up to par, you're going to see a cost there. Average case sizes, including existing and new patients, could be $3,000 a case. If that's walking out of the door after you're spending money on marketing, after you're, you know, paying the bills and dentistry is not being done, it's a costly non-investment when you don't have them trained to complete the whole team completely trained. Now, the second part of this, as far as motivation goes, to getting to believe this is important, is when you look at companies in general and what they invest in their employees to get them to a level of acceptance to be able to be in front of their customers, consumers, patients, whatever it is. Onboarding, right? The importance of it. Just for example, if you're an assistant manager at Target, right? Not exactly the highest form of customer service. Before you're ever allowed to talk to a customer, you have to go through 6 weeks of training. That's 5 days a week, 10 hours a day, 6 weeks of training. That's an investment that they're making in their employees before they ever even let them walk through the door as someone who's going to interact, someone who's fully trained. When you look at sports, right, football, NFL, there's a lot of college football going on. Larry told me not to bring it up, but football, for example, they're practicing all week long. For every 1 minute of game time, right, every 1 minute they play in the game, they've practiced 1 hour during the week. And in dentistry, we've got that backwards. We don't spend the time that it takes to perform at a high level when it's game time. So those costs are part of this. The second part of it is how do you keep those costs low? And I think All-Star does a phenomenal job at helping us keep our employees trained, our team members trained, so that at a low cost level. For example, I was doing some updating on these studies, Alex, and one study I saw said the cost to replace a trained employee obviously is going to vary by their earning level. So you could take the bottom earning level of, say, $8 an hour. Average cost is almost $10,000 for that, just that employee every time you turn them over. Now, obviously in dentistry, we're paying more than $8 an hour, so you can double that. Another cost analysis, there were 15 businesses analyzed. For a manager making $40,000 a year, that's anywhere from $20,000 to $30,000 in recruiting and training expenses. This is what other businesses out there are paying to replace employees. So when you look at what we're doing for employees and coming up with how do you motivate them, well, I'm looking at how do you motivate business owners to keep their employees trained. It's too costly not to have them trained. I guess that's the vantage point I'm taking. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's true. And you know, Ben Erickson, probably one of the top HR firms in dentistry, who we partner with quite a bit. They estimate the cost of a turnover in dentistry is 1 to 3 times their salary, which you mentioned. And I was asking Tim Twig, who we have his webinars in our program, about, you know, the issue of having a staff that you're not like happy with, who's untrained, you know, trying to hope you get that best employee, because, you know, dentists like, oh, I'll train once I get that best employee.
Once you get everyone,
the question, you know, he kind of put like, well, you don't want to step over dollars to get pennies. That was one thing he said. And it's better to have somebody who's not the ideal employee trained than somebody who's not the ideal employee not trained. It's so costly if they're not training. And the last point is, to your point, Eric, is you're right. The doctor, the leader, has to be motivated. You know, we love to say you just do it, and we hope it gets done. They self-motivate. Some of them are lucky they had a Dana. Dana was once an office manager, but she's just too popular that she can't, you know, do office management anymore. But, you know, they're hoping you get a Dana. You don't always get somebody like that who's going to do that for you.
You can make one, though.
Yeah, you can develop it through training, but you got to be involved, and you have to be plugged in.
And just to finish up, don't hold back on training because of your weakest link. You never let your weakest link on your team determine to what level you're going to go. You demand your weakest link get to the level of the rest of the team by doing training and putting them through it. And if they can't do it, you'll be able to put someone in that spot who can. And if they have the attitude, we can train the skill, right?
And the reverse of that, Eric, is that if you don't train excuse me, or train to the ideal employee, where do you think your standard goes? Who are you now based it upon? You always will fall to the weakest link. They always say you're only as good as your weakest link, like you said. So you'll end up, your training methodology and culture will fall to that. Yeah. So if you allow gossip and drama, your best employees will engage in that. And I want to get Larry started with that whole conversation, but that was what's going to happen. All right. Great stuff, Eric. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So Dana.
Wow, following Eric, that's hard to do. What I find with team motivation and training is Eric kind of touched on it as well as you did, is the doctors have to do it too. It's really hard to get a team to want to do anything when the doctor's like throwing it at you saying, okay, you guys go do this. And when they do that, they don't give them the tools they need, and they don't give them the team the time that they need. It's like, well, we'll do this, once a month. And so you block aside an hour, and everybody's 10 minutes late getting there because a patient ran over, and then somebody's got to leave 10 minutes early because we locked the front door. And so it's really, if the dentist will give them the time on a consistent basis and make that sacred time, because teams are like, we'll learn, we want to learn, but we're being told to do it, and we're not given time to do it, and we don't have the tools to do it, and the doctor doesn't do it. So if he's not doing it, how important is it? So it's really important that the dentists realize they are the leader, and it does stop with them. And if they're involved and they want to affect change, they need to be the change. And if they are, the teams will usually fall right in line with them, and they get excited. But it's the dentist that just throws it at them and says, well, you just go do this and go have fun with it, and then says, I don't see any change.
Right.
The team's kind of like, gee, we hope he forgets. Maybe he'll forget he asked us to do it.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
It does. And, I hear a lot, and this is probably true is that dentists get excited. They always bring the new idea. Mm-hmm. And you're right. The staff, they don't believe he or she is serious. And there's another one. They're excited about this again. I'll just wait till it boils over. They're just going to let that collect dust on the shelf. And well, the difference with All-Stars, we will hound our dentists. Why have you not logged in enough? Why have you not done your stuff? So we're pesky. We care. But you can never care more than, and this is what the frustration we had in a few study clubs ago, Larry, where you have office managers and team members on the study clubs saying, how can I get my doctor to be motivated to do something? How can I get them to fix the culture? And I'm frustrated and I want help. And those are employees you want who care so much, and we can only do so much, and we make some suggestions, but eventually if the doctor's not going to get in line, that team member should and will go somewhere else where they can find a leader that's going to support them, make them feel comfortable. Because this is where you work, and you spend more time at the dental office than with your partner, your husband, wife, whatever. And you want a great environment. You want an environment with less drama. You want an environment where you're learning, where you're getting better, where you feel safe. So it's kind of important to make that investment. So good point. Good point. So Larry, tell us about the issue of team training and motivating that you see.
Well, along with what's already been said, and particularly with making time, I don't think I can emphasize that enough. That if it's important enough to do, then I think it's important enough to put in the schedule. If it's going to cost us maybe $30,000 or $40,000, which I don't think is unreasonable, to replace an employee, to have them trained and all that. And the reason why we hired employees was to make us more productive. I'm already seeing like a vicious cycle here. I hired the person because I need to be more productive, but I don't want to spend the money to train them, but I spent a lot of money to retrain somebody else. And so we have to get off of this this crazy wagon that we're on. And so I know there's a lot of pressure. And as soon as I said that, there probably was a lot of eyes rolling that just saying, I don't have the time. And I understand how you don't have the time, and I understand how tight things are. We're talking about 20 minutes